now.
Okay, well that takes that question away.
So yeah, we're live. I think there's normally a few seconds delay, so we just wait for some people to come on and watch, and then we get talking. So how is the East Midlands today? Sun shining or raining?
No, it's sun shining. I think it looks like it's a good day. So hopefully a little bit later I'll be out in the garden, get my last few hours in before the winter finally gets here.
Yeah, have you got a lot to do to it?
Not a lot. No, I've had a lot of time on my hands recently, so
so it's looking pristine.
It's pretty good, yeah. It's probably looking the best it's looked, so I'm quite grateful to that. It's quite a large garden, but it's where I spend quite a bit of my time.
Lovely. And so, hi, Jeremy Tyler. Thank you very much for joining us today. Nice to speak to you earlier. So, Jem, for those of you that don't know you, you've got a really interesting story. I had the pleasure of listening to your story. I have the pleasure of being, hi, Sharon. Thanks very much for joining us. I have the pleasure of meeting you via Get the Edge. So John Davis and Lisa Davis, who run incredible leadership courses. And I've had the pleasure of speaking to you. I've had the pleasure of listening to Andy, who was on here as well. And you are absolutely inspirational. And John and Lisa and the leadership, the Get the Edge, and what they do is absolutely incredible. So I'm so grateful for you coming on this afternoon and sharing your story. And I'm very grateful for John and Lisa and Get the Edge and Andy for introducing me to you. Even though what was strange is we had something in common with your partner. Having an exceptional keep in touch policy for estate agents. So it's such a small world how things work out.
Absolutely. No, and you mentioned 3 people there that have been pretty much instrumental in my public speaking. So I owe each one of those a great thank you for helping me develop a new career and move back in. Well, it's given me a sense of purpose, and I think that's really important in life, that we do get a sense of purpose. And I've always I've always been giving back, but it's being able to do it in a different way.
Fantastic. So please share. I'm going to keep quiet now because I'm going to be, and everything I'm sure is going to be absolutely enthralled with your story. So please, share with everybody who you are, what you've done, and where you get to. And then what I would love to do is I'd love to discuss your hi Sarah, thanks very much for joining us. So Sarah, hi Hack, thanks for joining as well. So Sarah is CEO of Agents Together, so fantastic charity where you were kind enough yesterday to spend the afternoon filming. So thanks very much. So whether you're watching this now or watching this on replay, you're going to learn an awful lot from this young man. So Jem, I will leave you to tell your story. Thank you.
I just loved how you phrased that. This young man. Just to give the viewers and
it's what you told me to say, wasn't it?
How much did I have to pay? It just to give everybody who's watching a little bit of my background. A lot of people never heard of me. So I am Jem Hills. I am an inspirational speaker and I am a performance coach. As a young boy, my childhood wasn't great, like loads of other people. But as a young boy, I was badly bullied, and there's a lot of other things going on, but it's the bullying that really affected me, and that affected my internal DNA. That's part of your hard drive as you are learning and you're developing. My DNA was being kicked into touch. I lost my self-confidence, and worst of all, I lost my self-worth, which made me withdrawn, and I had difficulties in communicating. Bizarre that I'm now a public speaker, but at the time I really struggled, to the extent of, when I look back thinking of suicide, I just didn't have the guts to go and do it, but I wasn't in a good place. And there's lots of people that are in similar places. But fortunately for me, I found a passion, and that passion was in dance. And it's a form of dance. It's called Northern Soul, and it's a bit of a freestyle. But by getting involved with that and doing okay, I watched some of the good guys. I actually got involved in a dance competition. Not through choice. It was a good song, and I just happened to get on the dance floor. But during the 2 minutes of that dance competition, other people were being tapped on the shoulder. And so in my mind, I started thinking, I must be good at this. And my confidence for the first time ever started to grow. And 2 minutes later, I was tapped on the shoulder and, yeah, you're not good enough, laddie, take a seat. But I'd never felt that feeling before. And for me, that was the first time of actually feeling good. So I wanted more of that. So I watched what the winners of the competition did. I copied them, practiced, rehearsed. What is it? Johnny Wilkinson said, 10,000 hours and you become good. I practiced a lot. And I got into a top 20, I got into the top 10, and eventually I actually won a couple of these dance competitions. And there's two things that gave me. One, it gave me some confidence that I'd never had. But two, it was also making me fit, and I hadn't realized that. I didn't really understand what fitness was. But I then had the opportunity, that confidence allowed me to think of a goal of doing something else. And when but somebody showed me a poster of these guys that were doing all this action stuff. My academic career was pretty poor. I wasn't going anywhere. I don't think I'd have even got into college. But suddenly I had a goal, and that goal was to join the Royal Marine Commandos. And I started to train for it, and I joined the Royal Marine Commandos, and it's probably one of the longest training, 36 weeks to actually pass out. But I passed out at the end of it, and that gave me much more confidence. It gave me a family. It gave me a belonging to an organisation which I'd never had. So my confidence was growing. I had 4 years in the Marines, great times, and I volunteered to join 4-5 Commando. They were the Arctic Warriors. We've played in the Arctic Circle, down to minus 35. That was teaching me a lot of skills. And so as you develop, I started to look at what was next. And I took that goal system to the next level, and I volunteered for UK Special Forces, which is an elite organisation. There was a lot of planning, preparation to be done before I even got onto the course. But I passed probably what some people consider to be one of the most difficult military training courses in the world. And I served within UK Special Forces for another 20 years. Post leaving the service, I then worked as a risk and crisis management consultant to Lloyd's of London. And for a period of time, I was head of security to one of the richest guys on the planet, Prince Jeffrey of Brunei. And during that time, those times, I worked in, I developed, and I trained many high-performance teams that were operating globally. I worked with some amazing people, and when I look back, so privileged to work with some of these people who would not only put their lives on the line for their friends and colleagues, they would put their lives on the line for people they've never met, innocent hostages who are being held against their will by terrorists. Even today, these men are ready to deal with any situation and prepared to do what is necessary to achieve their aim. They are, in my opinion, some of the best people that walk this planet. And I think now I've been left for many years, but if I made a couple of calls, those guys would be there to support me. But over time, being fortunate to work with people like that, I have developed techniques and hacks from that time in Special Forces and my time in business to help teams and people perform to their optimum. And I do realize that not everybody can identify or relate to perhaps joining or being part of UK Special Forces. But one of the things that I do believe is that there's an inner drive within us all that makes us follow our heart. And I did have what some may consider an unusual life. But my story, I think, is just pretty universal, because it's about finding your passion in life, about choosing the life you want to live, and then never giving up in pursuing it. And I just think that is so important for all of us to go where we want to go, and make the most. We've all gone through 8 months of some very difficult times. Life is not a rehearsal. We need to make sure that we make the most of our time here. We're only here. We're caretakers for a short period of time. Make the most of that life and enjoy it. So I now help people, become the best that they can be, and help people to develop and find that emotional rocket fuel that I found those years ago, that I still find today, to just try and get people to a different level. And if you haven't got a coach, if you want to get to another level, go and find a coach, go and find somebody, because we all get to difficult stages. Find somebody who can get you to that next level. So Stephen, that's what I do. That's what I'm passionate about. And I just love, the opportunity to help people get to another level. Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
Back again.
Okay. Where did I lose you?
You lost me about getting a coach. Okay, all about getting a coach.
Are we okay?
Yeah, we're all good. So thank you.
Okay. So sorry, just tell me where again. Where did we get to?
So I got to, you think it's important for people to have a coach?
Okay. Yeah. So that's good.
So heard that bit. So wow, there's loads of things there to unpack. One of the things that I love to unpack with you, first of all, though, is you found it incredibly nerve-wracking being a speaker. I understand, and there's a lot of people on here that find it very nerve-wracking, maybe doing videos and everything like this before. So how did you overcome your fears of going out and speaking and becoming a high performance coach and an inspirational speaker?
It was never really planned. I always thought I had a bit of a story, and I thought, I could help people. And I've seen some really amazing speakers, and I was just like, how do I get myself from here to there? How on earth do I get myself on a stage? I mean, when I mentioned about my lack of confidence, that was my hard drive being formed. So I do struggle every time I speak, but I think it's understanding when you look at it. If I look back to my times in the Marines, they had the 7 Ps, which is prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance. And whatever we want to do, we need to plan for it. So if you've got a plan and you know what you're going to be talking about, doesn't matter how you're going to say, have it. I use slides probably a little bit too much because of my nervousness when I'm speaking. But for me, it's just telling a story. So the more I can put it into a story, the easier it becomes. Having said that, it's because of, Lisa Davis. She was one of the first people that, she invited me to speak to Get to the Edge. And I turned up there, 15-minute PowerPoint presentation. The first time I've actually ever talked about me. I've traveled the globe and I've instructed on loads of different things. But it's the first time of actually creating a PowerPoint and talking about my story, which makes you very vulnerable, because if people don't like it, if people think it's rubbish, then yeah, it feels like they're laughing at you. But I put this presentation together, as I said, a 15-minute PowerPoint. How difficult is that? And then I went to get the edge, and I delivered this in front of all their instructors and their speakers, which was a bit of a daunting audience. But at the end of it, I got this standing ovation from these guys saying, "You've got an amazing story." And I think it's because of where I came from, how I felt. And they've given me a load of advice on the way. In fact, Andy McMenemy, who you spoke about, he became, when you're ready, the teacher appears, and Andy sort of turned up, and he's helped me along the way a lot. But it's every time you speak, every time you do something that is different, especially when you stand up and put your head above the parapet, you'll get a hit of adrenaline. And when you're not used to that, that's what caused the nerves. That's what caused people to freeze. And it goes back, you had Andy on about a month ago, I think, talking about fight and flight. As soon as you stand up to do something that you're not used to doing, you'll get that hit of adrenaline. And if you're not used to that, that's when potentially you may freeze and you struggle to get your words out. But as long as you can plan it, you plan exactly what you're going to do, plan what you're going to say, rehearse it. 20 years in Special Forces, everything we did, we rehearsed. We made sure that we were nearly perfect. The only problem with it being nearly perfect is, what they say in battle is, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So things are going to go wrong anyway. But rehearse it so you at least stand a good fighting chance of actually delivering what you want to deliver. There's a good chance that things will go side right or things change. Yeah. But it's planning what you've got to say, and then just getting on and doing it. And 20 years in Special Forces, I had a few risks. If you're doing a Zoom or you're doing a Facebook Live, you're not going to die. Yeah. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to you? And I think sometimes you just got to think about that. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to me here? Are you going to lose your credibility? Not really, but and I think it's take that step and go and do it.
Brilliant, thank you. So you've obviously worked with elite people. What 3 qualities would you say elite people need to have, or that makes them elite? It may not just be 3, maybe a lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think it comes into that. One is having determination. It's having that. Most people within elite, whether they're sports people, they've got a determination to get where they want to go. It's having those goals and actually making sure you're going to turn up and deal with it and actually get to where you want to go. I think humility is a really good quality. We don't like people that stand up and brag about who they are and what they've done. Very much, when I first started speaking, I struggled with, how can I talk about, well, I can't, to be fair, talk about my time in Special Forces. We're not allowed to talk about certain things, operations and things that I've done. But it's the last thing I want to be doing is being on a stage and bragging about what I've done. I want to use those experiences to help people achieve what their goals are. And to me, that's what is really important, is using those skills and giving back to other people. And it's, as you say, that being elite, it's a difficult one, because it's like, do you consider yourself elite? I was fairly special in the organisation I was, and some people will call that elite. But discipline's another one. Is again having that reason to get out of bed and making sure that you're going to make a difference and do something that other people. To me, it's about helping people. It's not being an individual. I'm not an individual, and I don't think in Special Forces we were never individuals. It was always part of being a team and helping others to get to the end goal.
So how would you build up that team and build up that culture?
Great question. One of my favorite subjects. And I mean, in the Marines, we have a thing called esprit de corps, or you notice that I still consider myself in the Marines. The Marines have a great culture. And if you take that to another level, in special forces, there is an amazing culture. And what does that mean? It basically, it's how we do stuff around here. And to the extent of, I have your back. And I think what you know when you're in an organization, that is very tight, is wherever you are, your mates will have your back. But where does that come from? Where does that stem from? And I think if you look back at, if I do a comparison with different companies, it's about having values, it's about having a vision, and it's about having belief in the organization you're working for, which is exactly what companies should be striving to. If you could bottle special forces culture, it would be worth a fortune. But why can't you? Why can't you have that within your company? And to me, it's about, from the CEO down, it's the CEO who has the vision, but his board have to be on board with that vision. They all have to believe in that vision. They all have to have an understanding, from the CEO to the guy that sweeps the corridors at the end of the day. They have to understand what the values are that are in that company and why they want to be part of that company. To me, that's just, those fundamentals. We've all heard of the All Blacks.
Great book, Legacy, by James Kerr.
Absolutely. And there's a bit in there that it talks about, you have to become, the two most senior players, not the captain, the two most senior players of the All Blacks team get the privilege to sweep the room. Not the young thruster who's just joined the team. It is you have to build up your credibility to be able to sweep the room and clean it after everybody else has left. And I think that shows you that those fundamentals are about culture. And with a company, it's the induction. That first day that somebody joins, that is probably one of the most important days of them joining a company, because that's when they're going to find out what the values are, but not just what the values are, how the rest of the company react to those values. And that's a time when somebody will say, do I want to stay with this company or don't I? And I think, when you're looking at really talented young people that are coming to organizations today, they will check the values of a company out. They know where they want to work. So you need to have a great culture within a company. Otherwise, it implodes and people just don't want to work there. So really important.
How would you go about building that culture? Because some people, either they're just starting off on their journey, they're starting off their business. They may not have any experience of building that. Where would you start?
Looking at your own values. And as your company grows, it's like at a certain stage, you're going to have to say, okay, what are our values? And get everybody together. Have one of those, sort of days where people come together and you can discuss what the values are. Because I think you need to get everybody who's involved, you need their buy-in. And some people may have different values and different thoughts. But if you can bring everybody together at the beginning, that's when it's really important that you look at, the CEO or the guy in charge who started this has got the vision, he's got the drive, but he's got to bring the people on with him. And to do that is, to have, one of those days where you can sit down and go, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? And get everybody on board. And then you can start to put the fundamentals in place to build those, your culture, your values. And as people join, they will start to understand what they are. But at least people have had that opportunity right at the beginning, to start to believe in where they want to go. And you've got to have that belief.
So where people, I think, find it a challenge is sometimes getting that buy-in with their team about their values and their visions. How would you try and get that buy-in?
Asking them, trying to be open and honest. Do they believe in what the vision is? If not, why not? I think if you look back to Special Forces, every time we did something, whether it was a success or whether it was a failure, we would have a massive debrief. And it's really important that you actually understand what you did well, what you did wrong, and why you're doing stuff. So, with your board, is to make sure that they're all on board. I mean, the CEO, it's his vision, but the board have to be, all the other directors have to be on board with it. If you've got one director that's not seeing the vision, isn't part of it, then you need to understand why. What are his reasons against it? And if you can find out that, then you can have those open discussions to make sure that you either change him or you may change your vision. He may have a very good point, but you need to hear what that point is.
Okay. Resilience. Okay, with everything going on at the moment, and being estate agency is like a roller coaster. One day you're on the top of the world, you're selling loads of properties, you're letting loads of properties, it's easy. The next day you've got sales falling through, challenging calls. Any tips on staying resilient? And I know, I don't know how happy you are to share your story about resilience, but it's an incredible story.
Yeah, well, I think resilience, I mean, it's just one of those great words, and it actually, it's what makes us all different. We've all got, doesn't matter where we've come from, what our backgrounds are, we've all got a different amount of resilience, and it could be good or bad. And what is it? It's how we bounce back, how we overcome adversity. And I think if you can just look at, whenever you do something, I mentioned there about having a debrief. If you failed something, it's learning from those failures, and that's pretty much what resilience is. It's falling on your face and actually picking yourself up. When you're a kid, how many times do you fall over before you can walk? We just keep going, and it's like you don't know anything else. And I think that's life, and it's those hard knocks that teach us into understanding what it is. And I think sometimes you probably just have to look at how it affects different people, and it's your coping mechanism. It's actually, the last 8 months that we've been going through this, it's affected a lot of people in many different ways. And we started going through it, and there was a shock and disbelief, which in some cases that creates that irritability and anger that some people are like resentful about what's going to go on. Some people have got quite they're not sleeping well, and so they become irritable and become moody. And it's understanding those trigger points, that how you can then help somebody if they're actually going through sort of that resilience, and it can actually take people into depression because they don't know how to deal with it, they don't know how to bounce back, and so sometimes we just have to look at how we can help people. So actually helping people, to me, is like giving them challenges. Last week, I'm very fortunate. I took my fiance Kim. We went on holiday. Not had a holiday, all the time, but we went up to Scotland and just did some walking. We're both pretty passionate about walking, and we're on the Fife Coast, and came across, I hadn't heard about it, came across this thing called the Ellie Cliff Chain Walk. And I said, we'll go and do that. That became a bit of a problem for Kim. She started to Google it, and she started looking at deaths on Ellie Chain Walk, and it was on the cliffs, and it was tidal, so you could get stuck on the cliffs. And so her perception of doing this started to, she's like, "Are you sure we should be doing this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it'll be fine." Which is my attitude. It doesn't matter what it is. Yeah, it'll be fine. It might kill you, but hey ho. And so, but we went and did it. And I must admit, I was thinking, it's only a chain walk. But when we dropped into the first sort of void, into the behind these cliffs, and you drop into one sort of valley, and then you have to climb out of it. And the first one, I was like, oh dear, this looks a little bit challenging. And I was like, are you okay? And she went, yeah, I'm going to do this. And it was absolutely brilliant to see. And it was tough. She had a Fitbit on, and she went, oh, my heart, I'm at 140 now. but she kept on doing it, and she's pretty fit, so we carried on and we got to the end, and I felt really pleased to see how pleased she was. I got a lot. I don't know if I got more satisfaction out of it than what Kim got out of it, but seeing somebody overcome a challenge, and to me that's what resilience is. It's overcoming these different challenges. Having spent most of my life serving in the military, the Marines are one of the few organisations that teach resilience, and they push people to an edge of where they think, well, you believe you're going to die. They know exactly that you're not going to die, but they're pushing you. And I think, if I go back to my basic Marine training, you start off in a gym because we're weak little individuals, but the training program is designed for weak little individuals to build you up. And as you get built up, you go from the gym to the bottom field, which is the assault course, because you've got fitter and a bit stronger. And this is several weeks into it. And then you're building up to the final after 36 weeks, or 30 weeks, you do a 6-week commando training. But halfway along there, they suddenly tell you that you're going on the mud run. And the mud run, I think, it's down there as one of the hardest things I've ever done. And you turn left and you run out onto the River estuary, and it is just all you can see is mud. And they run you in the mud, and your body thinks you can't go any further. They're just pushing you, and it is one of the most hardest things, because running in mud really gets to your legs, it gets to your heart, it gets to your whole body. But the thing that keeps you going is your mind, and it is that mind, and they push you to an inch of where you think you can go to, and then they'll stop you, and then they'll start again, and then they stop you, and then they start again. And what they're actually doing is building up your resilience, building up your ability to go further than I and my colleagues and my friends have ever been pushed before. So the following day, you've done something that you haven't done before. So that's resilience training. That is building up your individual resilience against things that you can overcome.
So bringing that back to business, how can you bring that resilience into business, being a roller coaster the whole time?
I think it's setting yourself challenges. With I think estate agencies and a lot of other people, it's a sales game, and some of us are good at sales, some of us are not good at sales. But it's getting used to the no's. There's a lot more no's than you get yeses, and the more no's you get, the easier it is. But you just have to think, next. And sometimes we do take a bit of a hurt because we feel rejected when somebody says no to us. But we just have to overcome that and go, well, why am I doing this? And I think one of the things that we have to do is to have goals. We need to have that reason to get up in the morning, and you may have a full day of no's. It may be a full week of no's before somebody says yes to you. But you've got to have a goal that actually keeps you going. What is your end goal? And I mean, goal setting's a passion. Yeah. How do we set those goals that I think they need to be emotional goals that give us that reason to go through the hard times? And as you say, estate agents have suffered an awful lot over the last few months, as a lot of people have who've been furloughed and been put into very difficult situations. But I think it's when you had a bit of time, is to look at what you really want. Why do you want it? And where do you want to go? And with that time, do a bit of personal development. What can help me get to where I want to go? And I think that's one of the big things about, when you break your goals down, what do I need to do today that's going to get me closer to my goal tomorrow? And I think they're the important.
Thank you. You've got an impressive array of books behind you. Any recommendations as to, on the leadership side, that people should be looking at reading to help self-develop?
Obviously, I've got a bit of a military bent, but on one side we've got military books, on the other side is all mindset. But one that I do recommend is it's I don't know if you can see that.
Make Your Bed.
Yeah, it's from a guy called Admiral William McRaven. If you haven't heard of him, definitely go onto YouTube and click in Admiral William McRaven and his talk to the graduates at the University of Texas. And I think that is, without question, one of the best motivational talks I've ever heard. He is a former SEAL. His career did a lot better than mine. But what he talks about, and make your bed. When you're doing goal setting and you're doing stuff, I'll get a bit of a funny story here. It's really important that you set yourself on the right bed. I do a morning routine. It went out of the window this morning. Had a lot too many things going on, but I normally have a good morning routine that sets me up for the day. That I have to get up. I have to do some exercise. If I don't do it first thing in the morning, that's it. It's gone. By the end of the day, I just don't feel like it. I'm not motivated to go and do it. I'll then perhaps do a bit of yoga, a bit of stretching, a bit of self-development. There is listen to Audible or read a few pages of a book that I'm into, and then have a great breakfast. I'm really big into nutrition, especially at this period in time. There's a couple of things that we can do to help our mind. Is exercise. Doesn't matter what it is, but exercise is really important. And also, we need to be building up our immune system. We need to have good health, especially at the moment. And we get that from some very simple things: nutrition, water, sleep. So work on it. But after my exercise and my little routine is to have a great breakfast. Oh, excuse me.
It's all right.
Yeah,
makes it real, doesn't it?
Yeah. Somebody obviously wants a gig. Yeah, but it's those things that we can start off and make sure that we've got a good routine in place to actually make sure we've got a good reason for getting out of our bed in the morning and achieving and doing the stuff that we want to achieve.
Okay, so David Goggins, friend of yours.
I'm actually reading his. I'm listening. Second time through David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt You. Pretty extraordinary guy. I consider myself a British SEAL. My training officer when I joined the Special Boat Service was a SEAL, and so I've worked a lot with these guys. And he had a very similar background to mine. Very tough upbringing. Things weren't going well for him, and he managed to actually get into the SEAL teams. And then he became an ultramarathon runner. But whenever I read something like that, it's wow, yeah. And to me, there's like a lot of similarities, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could use that. And his Audible, I definitely recommend the Audible because he puts in a few challenges for you, and at the end of each chapter, him and his ghost author unpick what he's talked about doing that chapter. So you're not only reading the book, you're getting the reasons why he wrote what he wrote. So definitely a good book that may stimulate you into doing something a little bit more. He was extreme, and his ultramarathon stuff was pretty incredible.
Inspirational story. I mean, I like the cookie jar. When you're having a really tough day, put in all the good things that have happened to you in your life, and put it in this cookie jar, and then pull it out, and hopefully, it will get you out of where you are, which I thought was great. I mean, I listened to that book. I'm not a reader, and I listened to it on Audible. I think for 14 hours I was glued. Couldn't get it out of my ear. It was just absolutely incredible story. And actually, it's interesting. You talked at the start about you were bullied and the start of your life, and how Northern Soul Dance made a massive difference to you, which is incredible. But mindset wise, how can you go? Is there a way you can go from having Carol Dweck wrote a good book, Fixed Mindset Against Growth Mindset, or how do you go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? You know, is it something that you can retrain your mind to look at things in a very, very different way?
If you want to.
Okay, so how can you? How can you? Because I think most people want to.
Well, that's the big thing, isn't it? Some people don't. And
They just a little push.
If you've got a fixed mindset, you don't listen to other people. You've got a fixed mindset. You know you've got a plan. You're not going to listen to anybody else. If you've got an open mindset, you're ready for change. You can deal with adapting to different things. And I think that's the difference between people that want to grow and people who don't want to grow. And some people, whatever you teach them, whatever you say to them, they just don't listen. They'll carry on down the road that they're going to go in. For me, it's every day's a new day. It's about learning new things, and I think that is having that growth mindset, having the ability to go, how can I change? How can I be a better person? What can I do to help me to help others? And I think as long as you start to look at life like that, to me, I enjoy helping others. So the more I can understand, the more I can learn to help people, overcome their difficulties. Then I've still got a lot to learn. I learn every day, and that's the difference between having a growth mindset and having a fixed mindset. Some of us, as you said, the cookie jar. I'll often get people just, if I'm coaching, how do you become positive when you're in a negative? And I think that's one of those difficult situations. If you list down, very much like the cookie jar, but just list down all your achievements. Because sometimes we can be in a bad place, but we've actually done some great things. But if you can just list them down and then actually put a picture towards them. And I was taught many years ago to have a moods board or a goal board. But why not have a happy board? Have a board or have somewhere where you can put all your great memories. A few years ago, I was taught an NLP technique called anchoring. And basically, it was think of your biggest achievement. And for me, that was Special Forces, without question. I'd gone through the Marines, but actually to get into Special Forces, it was ridiculously hard. And the day we finished, we walked into a room, and the commanding officer walked in and shook our hands and congratulated us. There were 6 of us in the room. And I walked out of that room 10 feet high. And for that whole weekend, I was at least 10 foot high. I was in a place because I got somewhere that I probably never realized I was going to get to. And the anchoring technique I used to take me back to that. And basically, if I think about that moment, I was then taught to hurt myself, is to actually use a technique of actually squeezing my nail into my finger. And it's really good if you're going into an interview, if you're going into a meeting that you're not totally confident about, or you're in a bit of a poor place. But by now, because I'm sort of brainwashing myself to think about that moment and to hurt myself with this just little action, when I do that, it takes me back to that moment, and that releases all those good hormones as it did back then, because our mind is this amazing machine that we can actually trick it into thinking good things. And so that little technique just helps me if I'm in a difficult place and I want to get, feeling good about myself. I just have to, think back to that. And I do that technique because I can do it covertly. If I'm in a meeting and it's going, an interview or something, I can just put my hand in my pocket and I can do that. So it's just a small little tip that just has worked for me. It helps me, and it brings back, some amazing memories of, when I passed Special Forces selection. Okay,
I think that's a lovely way to end. So sharing a great tip. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. I mean, you shared so much. I'm sitting here and I've written pages of notes with everything you said. So, you know, talking about self-belief, feeling good, the culture, the values, the vision, to determination. Sarah says on here, you know, humility, so often missed. Great to hear Jem say how important this is. You know, the discipline, helping people, being part of a team. You know, I like the way you talk about the induction day. And I like, you know, at the end what you're saying, every day is a new day. You know, which is a really nice way of looking at it. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for your time. On Thursday at 12:30, I'm joined by Gail Audley, another performance coach as well, who does a lot of work with Law Society and Property Mark. So very excited to have Gail on here as well. So hopefully you'll all join us then. Thank you so much for watching now or watching on replay. Incredibly grateful to you. Jem, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful. I can't wait to watch. I know you were filming yesterday with Agents Together. So I'm looking forward to all the videos and all the help and support you're going to give estate agents and letting agents and the property industry as well. So thank you so much for getting involved with that. You know, I know Sarah, I think Sam, who was watching it, Chris, Sam, the other Sam, Kenny, Michael, James, and Mike. We're all incredibly grateful for the time that you gave yesterday. So thanks very much. Everybody, I wish you a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Have a productive, effective one. And I look forward to seeing you all on Thursday. Jem, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen, for the